Welcome to the Home Building Hub, your essential podcast guide to building your new home. Hosted by industry experts Colin Bischoff and Darren Brennan, this conversational podcast will help better educate you about all things new home building so you can avoid costly mistakes and enjoy your building experience to the fullest, no matter which home builder you choose.
Hey there, folks. Welcome to the Home Building Hub. You are with Colin and co-host Darren Brennan, as always. And Darren, the building bottleneck. 5 things the government must act on right now. Now, my friend, you attended an event earlier in the month, and basically you've got some of those key takeaways, and we thought it'd make a really good podcast episode, didn't we?
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, and it's I think it's really well publicised, some of the issues that are out there, but it's just good to highlight those and some of the, I guess, some of the ideas that the experts in the industry have. So these aren't necessarily our ideas, but certainly supportive of a lot of them in terms of trying to get things moving. And the government set this massive target of 1.2 million homes over the next 5 years, and we're way off track right now. We're nowhere near it, right? And, what do we need to do to get things back on track so we can actually hit those targets?
Yeah. No, that's good. I don't know how to discuss it, Darren, but I don't know how they come up with 1.2 million. I don't know if they engage with the industry well enough and for long enough to come up with these, quite frankly, bullshit numbers. Like, it needs to be addressed, and we've got people, thankfully, in our industry that are fighting for the right of the industry, which inadvertently is fighting for the right of you, the home buyer. And that's why we thought we'll present this topic and just say, here are the 5 things that have been presented as options to act upon, right now. And I think it's a good insight into some of those ideas. And as we said, they're not our ideas, but we will just highlight what they are and keep that discussion going. If we can highlight that and someone's listening who's taken offense to me calling it bullshit, then great, fantastic. But go and give us a call, or the numbers on the website. So we'd be happy to talk to you about 1.2 million, but what we may need as an industry to really support that and resource-wise to get us into a position to be able to achieve those numbers, that would be really, really helpful. So anyway.
We can't continue to drive migration numbers in like we are without having housing available for people to live in, because at some point we're going to have a whole lot of homeless people living on the street, Cole, and we don't want to be that. That's not the country that Australia is. That isn't the country that the migrants are coming here to live in, We want people to have a house, a roof over their head. We want them to be comfortable and successful in life. And it starts with your family being safe in their own home or in their own premise that they can actually live in. We see rentals pricing going up. We see, house prices at unaffordable levels. And what I mean by that is, we've got high interest rates. Incomes aren't going up against that at the same rate. We want to make affordability the key. And, as a first home buyer, I'm a father of 3 kids that are getting towards an age that might want to start buying their own home. It's a real challenge, like just trying to save a deposit towards a new home. So, things that we can do to free things up. Certainly government incentives and programs are helping, but we've got to free up, the supply of land as much as anything, because without land, us builders can't build a house. So it starts with the supply line. And, I think that's really where it kicks off. But maybe I'll kick off with item number 1, which is fast track the planning and approval process. And what we're talking about there, the problem is it's taking far too long for developments to get out of the ground. Delays in planning, zoning and approvals are dragging out time frames and increasing holding costs. And a live example of that is I was at a land breakfast earlier this week with one of the land developers. As an example, they do the heritage, so that they come in and they look for any items that may have been there from when the Aboriginals were using the land. It took them about a year to get us, this acreage looked over, dug over, looked at. Out of that, they found, a number of things that they considered could be and may well have been Aboriginal artefacts. they weren't considered significant. They were told just put them back in the ground, that'll be fine. The cost to that basically it was costing him $2,000 a day to have an advisor come out. Often the advisor wouldn't show up, so they had their guy there with a tractor and stuff ready to dig up and look around, and the other people there to assist, and the advisor wouldn't show up. So which is just crazy. So they're paying all this additional cost. On top of that, the interest on holding that land was $10 million a year, right? So this is all additional cost that's in that. So, we need the government to streamline local council approval processes so it can get through the local councils really fast. They're the ones who are approving these developments. We need to introduce a fast lane for shovel ready, for developments that are ready to go, that have got everything in place, that we can go straight through. All the infrastructure's already there, get them straight through and enable, we're in a digital age, but everything's done via a paper trail. So enabling digital processing of paperwork that gets things through, in a timely fashion. It's sort of interesting. They talk about build times in Victoria. One of the stats that was shown was build times in Victoria. They're coming in, but they're saying right now it's about 10.1 months, right? And I think that's probably longer than most. We're seeing single-story homes being built in 5 to 6 months, something like that, and double stories take a little bit longer. But it's certainly getting a little bit better. But it's not necessarily, and sorry, on that, with the new NCC requirements, that's added a whole lot of extra stuff you got to do to your house to build it. You're putting solar on the roof, you're doing all these other bits and pieces that take longer to build a home, number one. So that build time should be longer than what they were pre-COVID, pre-NCC. But the lags are actually due to the bottleneck, even before you're getting the house to site. We mentioned in our last episode, Colin, and I noted that you said, 2 to 4 weeks to get to site. I reckon that's unders. I reckon it's more like, 6 to 8, maybe even 10 weeks to get to site once the land titles are released, because you've got this, you're not getting all the information about all the services getting uploaded quick enough. It's there, they're just not doing it, right? And so by the time we're able to access that information, it's just slowing the entire process. And that comes at a cost of the end consumer. The end consumer is the person who's actually paying for that.
Yep.
So that's number one, mate. How about number two?
Number two is Incentivise land release and infrastructure investment. So the problem is that land supply is not keeping up with the demand, which we know, especially in Melbourne in this case, where the land price, the growth is 0%, while other cities are going quite well. I think in other capitals, investors, we need to help drive the market with what's required. So what the government could do is unlock more greenfield land with funding for roads, schools and utilities. They could partner with developers to co-invest in that infrastructure to make that actually happen in combination with point one, Darren, fast-tracking a few things.
Yep.
They could provide some tax incentives or grants for new land releases as well, because the reality is a first home builder grant is excellent and very helpful, but not if there's no land, So really getting it right at the starting point and providing incentives and getting that across to support the developers, so then we can get some houses sold and built, and people can get some houses to rent out or to buy and live in and things like that. That's number two.
Yeah, cool, indeed. Again, we know about the labour shortages and material shortages out there. So, reform the labour and material supply chains. And the problem is labour shortages and material price spikes continue to cripple timelines and margins. So again, what we're seeing is a lot of these projects either can't get the people to come and build them, or the price that they're having to sell these products for are no longer sustainable because of these increase in prices. So we need to, the government needs to expand skilled migration pathways for trades and construction. So again, a lot of the migrants coming in are white collar workers. So we want to really encourage more trades and supplies that can help the construction industry. Invest in training programs for apprentices. And again, I think it's almost seen as, and crazily, if you don't go to university, you haven't been successful. And it used to be that it was the other way around. University was only for a very selected few people. Now it seems everyone goes to university and go and get an arts degree. What do they even do with the arts degree? And to be honest, with things like AI coming into play, half these degrees that people are studying aren't going to be worth the paper they're written on anyway, because AI will do the job twice as quick. So, we've got to be really thinking about how are we encouraging people? How do we make, being a plumber, being an electrician, a really cool job? Like, how do we get the young people to realise that's a great career, and that there is a lot of money to be made in it, and that they can be really successful and do it for a long period of time. So, investing in those training programs to really encourage that. Cut tariffs and increase access to building materials. So again, we've got to be mindful of how we controlling these products coming into the country, right? And what are the things that we can be doing? And there's some real advantages there right now for us to be doing so, particularly with what Trump's doing overseas with the tariffs he's putting on. We can become a really favourable trading partner to some of these people if we're mindful about what we're doing and how we're going about it. And some of that, the data insights, I guess, that came out of this event I was at was, WA build times have peaked at 16 months. That clearly shows there's a labour shortage, right? The inefficiencies are stretching out projects right across the board. The other thing that's happening is there's so much government, certainly in Victoria, the big builders soaked up so many trades and so much materials that you're having to pay overs to get the same trade that you would normally get because they're working on government jobs. So there's got to be a balance there, or at least more of these people coming into the country that are able to actually help, shorten will mitigate the shortage that we've got there. So that's number 3, mate. Number 4.
It's a really good one. Yeah, I think. I was just thinking during that, Darren, the way when I went through high school and stuff like that, the kids that you just knew were going to be tradies, it was frowned upon them to leave. And I'm like, I know he's going to be a tradie, like go and do it. And they're sort of forced him to stay till year 12. It's like he should have got out in year 10, kicked off the apprenticeship and off he went. So I think, we need to value the trades a lot more. I totally agree with that one. Number 4, rethink housing targets. Obviously, given that we've got this 1.2 million home target. Now, look, I don't profess to know much about politics and where this stuff comes from, and I'm probably not great at articulating. I'm a bit more direct and try and be realistic with how I view these things, Darren. But however we got to 1.2 without actually understanding how we're going to get there is perhaps a little bit of a mistake, as we said at the top. So what we need to do is realign and come up with a realistic figure and coordinate with the relative bodies that are involved in the industry, that are impacted, the ones that can actually tell you what's realistic, what's holding them back and what could push them forward. So realign those targets. At the moment, 1.2 is the forecast, 983K based on HIA is where we're at. So we're over 200,000 short of that. So 1.2 sounds great, but I'm not interested in what sounds great. We're more interested in let's work out what's realistic. What can we do to make it happen?
Also, if we're suggesting we're going to build 1.2 million homes and therefore we allow enough migrants to fill those homes in, and then we only end up building 983,000, well, what do we do? Where are these people going to live? Will we all renting out a spare room, or, turning your garage into a bedroom to have some new migrant into the country living at your joint?
Yeah.
You wouldn't mind that, Cole?
I think that that would need to be looked at, because it would be a bit of a problem and an oversupply of people compared to what's
correct
to accommodation. But there are things, there are different types of products we're working on right now, Darren, that allow more than one tenant. Things like that other states do, like that we should be looking at and we should be doing, because some of all that's going to do is drive up the price to rent and to buy.
Absolutely.
So that will make it even, more unrealistic for people to be able to afford that. So splitting houses up a bit, enabling more than one tenant, makes it, $300 per room slash section, rather than having to pay $600 that you can't afford and things like that. So factoring all that in, they need to get together and work all that out and set some rolling quarterly benchmarks would be good, Darren, with accountability measures based on completions, not just commencements. So, yes, 200,000 plus short we are, and so something's got to give. Rethink the targets and put some realistic timelines on.
I think also they often look at permit numbers. So they've got, but just because you've got a permit doesn't mean you start the place. And we've seen that with a lot of the high rises. There's a whole lot of high rise permitted buildings. They're not building them because there's no money in it. They can't actually work out how to turn them into a profitable situation. So if they're basing it off the permit being issued and going, look at that, look at all these permits coming through, they'll all get built eventually. A whole lot of them aren't going to get built, and we're going to be, even worse off. So, the problem continues, Colin. Number 5, and I think this is the real big one for me, is it is a supply issue. It's not a demand issue; it's a supply issue. And if we can fix the supply problem, then we fix the demand problem at the same time because we'll have enough supply to suit the demand. And we've really got to look at what does that look like and how we're going to fix that. So high holding costs, land taxes, developer contributions are all pushing up the price of lots and discouraging developers from bringing land to the market. And again, if you're a developer, and I look at land tax, 2 things I look at that I think are real issues. Certainly in Victoria, they introduced the windfall gain tax. So if they're, that's just if someone's had a pat, pardon me, for many years, and now it's going to be turned into development. So all of a sudden that price has gone up significantly. They're taxing that person for being lucky enough to own in an area that they bought many years ago.
Yeah.
And they're adding more tax to that. Well, that tax just gets passed on. It's not like, we'll just give all this money to the government. No, they pass on to the end user. Pardon me. That's part one. So there's your added cost at the front end. Then if the developer, let's say they're well cashed up and they can afford to fund a whole lot of land, they go, bugger, we'll get ahead of the game and we'll develop all this land. The minute that land titles and it rolls around to Christmas again, the end of the year, they get slugged land tax on that. So they get a double whammy, right? So they can't afford to actually just develop more because they can. So, there's a few things that the government really need to look at, and that's review and reduce stamp duty and land tax on undeveloped lots. And again, the government's also talking about unrealised capital gains and taxing on unrealised capital gains. And if they do that, it's just, again, another way to just put a handbrake on future development and continue to stymie the land supply. Cap or reform developer charges that inflate the end prices. And to give you an idea, about 50% of the cost of a block of land is in government fees and charges and taxes. So, imagine we could get that back significantly. We'd see land prices come back. We'd see a really competitive market. We'd see, people wanting to buy. So we've got to really consider, where that sits. And I was listening to the radio just yesterday, Colin. I thought it was really relevant. It's great if you want to put all these taxes in, but in the end, if that means that nobody actually develops land, well, you don't get any of that tax at all. So be careful what you wish for. And they were referring to with the in Victoria with the cruise ships, they're all bypassing Victoria now because the Allen government's put this tax on docking by about 15%. They've upped the tax on it. So all they've done is just bypass. So you get none of that tax anymore. You were getting some before. Now you get none because they're not stopping. So that worked real well, didn't it? Smart move.
Yeah.
Last one is offer tax deferrals or rebates for developments that meet housing targets. So, support those that are really give the actual development some targets to hit. And if they hit those, incentivize them along the way. That'll really help, in the long game, I guess, in this. So even though land sales have dropped dramatically since 2021, lot prices continue rising, showing that taxes and overheads are still inflating the costs. And it's really interesting. A lot of people think, prices have come back. They haven't at all. The last 12 months in Victoria, it was suggested that somewhere between 6 and 7% is the actual real cost of where land prices have gone. So, and again, shrinkflation plays out into some of that as well. So, you're seeing smaller blocks selling for the same money as what was a bigger block previously. So there's a fair bit playing out there right now, Cole, and there's a fair bit for the government to step up and own. So, we need them to do that at both, at all levels, at local, at state government, and at federal government levels. But maybe as a wrap up, mate, give us the last bit, the last hurrah.
Yeah, it's okay. So I think the just on that last point there, I think on the surface level, we see a developer increasing land prices, but we probably don't deep down understand how much they've gone through tax-wise and red tape-wise to get it to the point, So I have to shout out to our developer friends that I think as a building industry, we don't quite understand what you go through to get to the point where it's ready for sale. Clearly, Darren, the government's welcome to call you or I, but I don't think that's probably a good idea. I think I don't have the diplomacy.
Come on, Albo. Come on, Jacinta. Give us a call.
Maybe you do.
Jump on the podcast.
They should involve people in our industry, the industry bodies, people like Keith Ryan running the HIA down
Absolutely.
here. Those people have the diplomacy and the absolute experience that, so let's get people involved earlier in the piece, because we understand, whilst we're saying there's 5 things you could do, there's also another 55 things there that doing this would impact. We understand that there's a cause and effect here, but there are smart enough people in our industry across the builders and across the industry bodies, and that's not Victoria, across the whole country, who should be spoken to and spoken with and have their say and contribution to what could and would work, and then battle test that and then roll it out from there. So I think that's key, Darren. These are 5 good ideas, and let's restore the momentum in the home building sector as a result, fix affordability, shorten the build times, boost the supply, and remove some of that goddamn red tape.
Absolutely, mate. Great episode. Well done.
Nice. Right, guys. Thank you for listening. Thanks for watching. Some maybe for the last time after that. I don't know. But anyway, God bless. Wish you all the best of luck for those people. But for the ones who stick it out always and get some value from our podcast, that's what we're here for. So thank you to you, and jump on and leave a 5-star review. We would love that. And if you do have any, feedback, comments, topic ideas, or someone that up in the government that wants to talk to us and explain their side of it, that'll be fantastic. Please jump on the website, homebuildinghub.com.au. And until then, we'll see you guys on the next one.
Fantastic. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Home Building Hub. As part of the podcast, we have to be a little careful to cover ourselves on a legal standpoint. So we do have a disclaimer. Whilst we're all about providing value to you, this podcast should not be considered legal or financial advice. It does contain general information only, and you should seek out independent professional advice on your own personal situation before you make any legal or financial decisions.